Sorry, I accidentally muted myself there. Greetings, fellow travelers, and welcome to Life Mastery TV, your source for inspiration, empowerment, and motivation and fulfillment. My name is David McLeod, and I'm your Life Mastery coach, and I'm producer and host of the Life Mastery TV program. Today's topic is about acceptance. And you may think that that's a pretty straightforward thing. We're talking about acceptance of what is. But I'm sure you already know the ego mind has its own way of putting a spin on things. So consequently, your ego mind has its own filters and its own perspectives that accumulate over time because of your experiences in the physical world. And of course, the problem is those filters and perspectives often get in the way of seeing things for as they really are and for therefore accepting them. Your perspectives tend to color things in ways that make it hard for you to really see what's really going on. My guest today, Azmina Jiwa, is a professional coach, NLP practitioner, tarot card reader, and forgiveness workshop trainer with lots of experience with this very issue. And indeed, her journey to become more accepting of herself led her to write a beautiful book called Freedom to Be Me. Welcome, Azmina. I'm so glad to have you on the show. It's been a while since you and I have been together. And well, it's just a pleasure to have you here. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you so much for inviting me. It's a great pleasure too.
You're welcome. So does that, what I said at the beginning, does that make sense to you? Or is that kind of how you experienced acceptance for yourself?
Yeah, I think it is. Yes, I guess with the ego, what you're saying also is that it's a lot of times it's our conditioning as well. It's how, when we are growing up, what we hear and see, we start to develop that as our truth. And then when something happens and we can't accept it, it's because all this is coloring our view of it, just exactly as you said. And of course, now it's about unlearning a lot of those things and learning to accept and be more at peace, isn't it?
Yeah, well, unlearning, that's a big deal, isn't it? And for me, I know that in my own life, that this process of unlearning, first I had to become aware of the fact that I wasn't seeing things the way I really thought I was. I was seeing them through these filters. And it wasn't until I did some very, very deep and powerful work in a men's workshop where I had the lens kind of removed momentarily and I could see the world in a whole new, clear way. And I thought, wow, isn't that amazing? Mm-hmm. And it really helped me to understand that these perspectives, these lenses, these filters that we put on over time, they stay there, and sometimes we get more of them, and sometimes the ones that we have get cracked or they get dirty, but we're seeing the world through that perspective all the time. And so unlearning is a difficult process that requires, first of all, to become aware of the lenses. Exactly. And then secondly, to find a way to either remove them or to clean them or to decide whether we want to keep them or not.
Yeah, definitely. And I think for me, awareness came, as you said, when I had those moments in my time when I was very, very down and feeling very miserable and tearful. And I started looking for these tools, how to help myself. And one of the things I came across was to start to accept. And then it's about, also learning about what to accept. It's acceptance is a lot about self, and also about our situations and circumstances that we find ourselves into. Mm-hmm. So starting this journey of, learning, what are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? Where am I judging myself? What am I going to, accept about myself? So all that kind of was my start of my own journey, because I felt that a lot of the reasons why I felt down and miserable was because I wasn't actually accepting myself. I was judging myself. I think we are our worst critics in our lives, aren't we? Most of us tend to be the worst critics, and we tend to criticize something that I'm not good at. I used to criticize and compare myself with others. And really, that doesn't help us being peaceful or happy at all.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And I think you're absolutely right. I think that the Self-acceptance is, of course, the most important kind of acceptance there is. And I know that in my own case, when I've learned to accept myself for all of who I am, it makes it easier for me to accept stuff outside of myself. I tend to be, as I become more compassionate, more loving, more forgiving of myself, and more accepting, I tend to find the judgments of other people just kind of falling away. I have less and less of those over time. Is that your experience as well?
Yes, definitely. I think we tend to accept other people more. So for me, it was about making a list of what are my strengths, what are my weaknesses, what are the weaknesses that I would like to change because it's in my power to change if I want to, and what are the areas that, if I'm not good at organizing, which I'm not really, and it come to a point where it's like, okay, so I'm not, and that's fine, and to accept that about myself,
right,
was really freeing. It really is freeing, and to also acceptance of our strength, because often what happens is that, and this is what I was doing all the time. If somebody comes and admires something you're doing, is praising you for something, praising me something, kind of tend to play it down and start making excuses for it, or start praising them instead of acknowledging that, yes, I am actually good at this, and it's fine. It's fine to say that rather than feel embarrassed or I'm showing off.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because that's something that I think we all tend to do. If we are somehow, we believe that if we are seen to agree with something that somebody says about us that's positive, then we're maybe too full of ourselves. We're too, too overconfident or something like that. Whereas we just want to fit in. That's the problem. We just want to fit in. And I think wanting to fit in, while it's an important part of life, wanting to belong, wanting to be part of a group and stuff, by doing that, we tend to downplay our own skills and our own abilities. We limit ourselves. We make ourselves smaller in order not to make someone else feel smaller, because we're stepping into our own power. Isn't this what Marianne Williamson was talking about in her poem, The Greatest Fear That We Have? It's exactly right. We are afraid that we don't have the right to shine our light as brightly as we possibly could, because to do so means that someone else has to be dim, which of course is not true. There's no reason for all of us not to shine our light brilliantly.
Yeah, and what she says in the poem is that when we actually shine our light, we give others permission to do it.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Yes, I remember one very incident that's in my mind always. I was at a party where, and I love dancing. There's music, I love moving. And after a little while, we'd all finished dinner and music came on, and I thought, okay, I'm going to dance. And I went up and just started dancing. And then this other girl came after a little while, and afterwards she came to me and she said, do you know what? I love dancing too, but I would never have got up. But when I saw you, it gave me permission to get up and come and dance.
Yeah, that's great.
I think that the truth is we do inspire other people when we, start to acknowledge what we are good at, and it's not showing off at all. It's really, I think it also allows us to express our potential. We don't shy away from our strengths, and we talk about it and we show people what we can do. I think that allows us to express our own self and our potential a lot more.
Yes, absolutely. And I think, this whole idea of acceptance, and I want to actually take a step back here in a moment, because when you were talking earlier about how you became aware of your strengths and your weaknesses and the things that you wanted to keep the same and the things you wanted to change and so forth, I think you hit on a very, very good point without actually saying it, and I just want to bring it to people's attention. There's no way we can change anything until we first accept it for what it is.
Yes.
And this is what, what is his name now? Frederick Solomon Pearls is one of my favorite quotes of all time. It's nothing changes until it becomes what it is. I love that because it tricked my ego mind, and it just made me think. It's, oh, of course, when I release all my stories and all my judgments and all my perspectives and my filters and see something for what it really is, then and only then can I change it to suit whatever purpose I have in mind for it. And that applies to myself as well as it applies to anything else in the world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that point of awareness and getting to, be where it is, and knowing and acknowledging, that's the journey then to start changing whatever we want to change.
Right.
And I've got in my book, actually, I've got a chapter, because it's really nice that you asked me to do this particular topic, because my chapter 2 in my book is freedom to accept yourself and the situation you are in. And again, talking about quotes, this is Sandra Begin, and he says, to accept ourselves as we are means to value our imperfections as much as our perfections. So it's just what we have said, isn't it? It's to acknowledge and accept that what I'm good at is fine, and what I'm not good at is also fine. And once I know what I want to change, then I can bring the change about. And I think also with the change, I think we all know kind of that any moment we are in is what will happen in the very next moment. Mm-hmm. So once we have acknowledged and accepted, then it's making that new intention of moving into the next space in a different way, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's making a new intention and then moving into something different. But if nothing changes in this moment, and if you're not aware and we don't accept what is, then that remains the same in our next moment and the next moment.
Right. You know, I'm a little bit embarrassed. I have your book here. You sent a copy to me, and I just love it. It's great. And I meant to bring it into the studio here this morning, and I simply forgot. I apologize. Would you do me a favor and just put your book cover up on the camera there so people can see it?
Sure. Yes. So there it is.
Yeah, there you go. It's a wonderful little book, just full of all kinds of great wisdom and some beautiful ideas and very, very heartfelt stories. So I just want to thank you for writing it and for making it available. And people can get it on Amazon, is that right?
Amazon, it's on, yes. And also my website, which is Azmina, AZMINA.com.
AzminaJiwa.com.
Mm-hmm.
Great. And people can find out how to get a hold of that book there. That's awesome. I'm glad. And I hope you get lots of sales from it, by the way. I hope it becomes a bestseller.
I'm aiming for it. Thank you very much. Yes. We had the book launch last week and went very well. And I sold
good. Yeah.
a lot of it. Was lovely. Yes. Thank you.
I'm glad. Now, in this topic of acceptance, I think there's something that's pretty important to be said here. A lot of people, when they have a resistance around acceptance, it's because they have an associated belief that to accept something means you agree with it, or you condone it, or you encourage it, or whatever. And I want to be really clear that that's not what acceptance means at all. You can accept something that you don't like, but as long as you know that it's something that you've accepted it as it is first. Okay, you don't like it as something else. It's a separate piece. Now, though, once you've accepted it, that's when you can do something about it.
That's right. Yes, and there's also, I think a lot of people believe that by accepting something, it means that you agree and that nothing will change. But I think it's actually the opposite, because by accepting what happens, I've noticed, and that by accepting something, the body tends to relax.
Absolutely.
And once the body relaxes, then the new ideas can come. It's like when we say, what you resist persists. Mm-hmm. So when we're resisting any situation which we are not accepting, it's going to persist in our mind. It's not going to go away. But the moment you take a breath and just say, wow, right now, it's okay with how it is right now. It doesn't mean that it can't change, but just accepting it in this very moment. And I think that's where connecting with our breath is quite important. Yeah. I find when you connect your breath, you bring yourself to the present moment. And I think acceptance is very much about bring yourself to this moment now, rather than think about all the consequences. And once you relax and take that breath, the body relaxes. There's a clearer thinking. There's a clearer way forward we can probably see when we relax our body.
Right.
I don't know if you've experienced that kind of thing.
Oh, absolutely. Yes. I mean, the whole thing is about presence, isn't it? And I think, first of all, I want to come back to the resistance idea. Resistance is the exact opposite of acceptance. Yes. I mean, you're aware of something in your environment, in your body, in your world, and you're somehow pushing it away. And that process is the exact opposite of acceptance.
Yes.
Now, the resistance can be a really good marker, if you like, to tell you, there's something here, excuse me, there's something here that if I could stop resisting it, might give me relaxation, might give me relief, might give me a reduction in stress.
Yes.
If I could learn not to resist this thing, of course, not resisting is like resisting resistance now, but that's not what we want to do. We want to just say, oh, I'm resisting something. Great. I'm aware of it now. And I can accept the fact that I'm resisting. Now, what is it that I'm resisting? Yes. Now I can take a closer look and begin to accept that thing for what it is before I really take a strong stance one way or the other about how I want to deal with it.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. And what I also like is what Dr. Susan Jeffers says in her book, which actually I've quoted in my book as well, is, she's got a whole chapter on say yes to life. And I found that a very, 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 very beneficial to me when I started my journey on, self-development and my journey of living life that I want. I found that very, very useful because, simple examples like we are in a traffic jam and we are resisting. So we are not accepting that we are there, we are stuck. We are watching our watch. We are thinking about all these consequences that being late somewhere is going to have. Instead of just saying, okay, the universe has, right now decided for me to be in a traffic jam. There's nothing I can do about it. These are things that life throws at us that are out of our control. So we can either resist and be het up about it and have stress, or we can just relax. And a lot of time when Dr. Wendayo used to say, just relax and do your meditation, and somebody at the back is always going to honk you to say time to go. And so, so you can choose. And I think, we can choose and say, okay, in some circumstances, it's an opportunity when something comes, when life throws something at us, or it's a learning.
Yeah.
So right. Here in a traffic jam, for example, it's an opportunity to relax and do something different, maybe a to-do list or meditate right. or, listen to some music, which we don't have time to.
Yeah. So I'm just going to say, for all you folks out there, raise your hand if you've ever been in a traffic jam and found yourself getting angry. You notice my hand is up. Yeah. My hand is up because that does happen to me. And I'm so glad you brought this up, Azmina. It's something that I think we can all benefit from. Okay, the next time I'm in a traffic jam, I am going to make a commitment to just say, all right, this is what the universe has created for me right now. Perhaps I attracted it into my life. Perhaps it's something that just randomly happened. Who cares? This is what it is. What can I do to make this as enjoyable as possible?
Exactly. That's right.
I think that's something that we could all learn from today. And I want to thank you for bringing it up because it was a really good example.
Yeah. And then when you look at it, okay, that's a simple example, which isn't a tragedy in our life. But then at the same time, unfortunately, things happen in our lives like death, tragedies like maybe getting disabled for some reason. In fact, I have a very live example.
How about earthquakes or fires or
any of these examples, which sometimes people experience it and they rise above, and some people go down with it because they're resisting it. But I think by accepting it, we can rise above the situation or the circumstances which we find ourselves in. And in this example, as I say, of a cousin brother of my husband, he's passed away a few months ago, but he was disabled in his, he was about 25, 30 years old, and he had a tumor, and he couldn't see, he couldn't walk, but he could just hear, and he used to speak through his computer. But somehow he rose above his situation and his circumstances by, accepting it and looking at it as a different opportunity. And he actually started talking to his own community about disability, and he started teaching Braille to blind children. Wow. Through his disability. And whereas really he was in a wheelchair, he could have easily said, my life is over, blamed his situation, blamed the accident, and would have probably wanted to end his life, which some people do, unfortunately. But he actually rose above it and started living a life with whatever he had and completely accepted it. So.
Yeah, that's. I find that there's lots of stories like that of people who have what appear to us to be some kind of, really egregious disability or something. And yet they turn out to be just the most amazing and inspiring people on the planet. I remember the story of a man, I can't remember his name, but a man who had no arms and no legs, but managed to climb mountains.
Yes.
I don't know how he did it, but it's just amazing. And then on top of that, he brings his stories, the things that he's done, and he talks on stage. Mm-hmm. He's just an amazing person. And there are so many people like that who have risen above their so-called disabilities to show us that we are not our bodies, we are not our disabilities, we are not any of the things that we assume that we are. We're not our thoughts, we're not our beliefs, we're not our emotions, we're not our body, we're not the roles we play. We are amazing, spiritual, divine beings of light and love, and we happen to just have a lot of strange experiences.
Yes. And I don't know, I kind of also have this belief that sometimes these circumstances come in our life really to for us to actually realize our potential even more. A lot of times people, you hear when some tragedy happens. I know a lot of friends who have said when they've had cancer or heart trouble, when they come out of it, they actually realize what real living life is, and they've turned direction, and they've actually expressed their own potential a lot more after that has happened.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
think sometimes, I think the universe kind of pushes us sometimes to express our own what we have come for our own purpose, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. But I want to say something here about that. While that is very true, and I have seen many examples of that in my own life, those kinds of extreme situations are not required in order for us to have a happy and fulfilling life. Mm-hmm. They are not required. Now, most of us, maybe even all of us, go through some difficult times in our lives. We have ups and downs and all kinds of stuff. And we go through these down times as a way of finding out more about who we really are. And then bringing what we learn about who we are out into the world so other people can benefit from it. That's really why we're all here. Yeah. To share our own experience, whatever it looks like, however, extreme it might be, or however normal it might be, it's just still another experience. And I love hearing all experiences. Mm-hmm. I think that's what really inspires me and motivates me and gets me going throughout the day.
Yeah, for sure. The way I look at it sometimes is us human beings, whatever 7 billion people we are like a huge jigsaw puzzle.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, and each piece is each one of us. Now, when we don't accept who we are as we are, then if you take like myself, if I don't accept myself, I take myself out of the jigsaw puzzle, what happens to the rest of the puzzle? It's not complete. And if I cannot show myself as who I am with my own purpose, with my own potential, with my own weaknesses, then really I'm doing a disservice, I feel, to people who are connected to me in that jigsaw puzzle.
Oh, that's a beautiful metaphor. I really love that. Thank you so much for sharing it. I mean, you know, I guess I've thought about it before, but I hadn't put it into words quite like that. And you're absolutely right. If you just imagine a jigsaw puzzle, and if you imagine all the people who chose not to show up, that would leave a lot of holes in the jigsaw puzzle.
And the thing is, every piece is so unique and special, and that's who each one of us are.
That's right.
Nobody's got our fingerprints. Nobody's got our features, except maybe some lookalikes that sometimes people say, oh, I know somebody who looks like you. But mostly we are just very unique and very special.
We are. And yet we're all part of the same energetic space. We're all connected energetically. We're all part of the same consciousness.
Yes.
It's like, I love the Buddhist image of the ocean, where, you have the ocean and all of us are like drops of water. For a moment, we are out of the ocean and we are, doing our own thing. And then afterwards, we go back to the ocean and we merge once again. And everything that we are becomes part of that, all that is. I think that's a beautiful metaphor too. So
very lovely.
Yeah.
Very lovely.
A nice thing about the ocean metaphor is you can still, from your ocean, you can still look out and you can see that jigsaw puzzle and you can say, did I show up out there?
Yes.
So it's pretty interesting, the capabilities that we have. And I think that just being able to accept ourselves as who we are, with everything, all the so-called flaws, all the imperfections, and all the beauty and magnificence and everything else that goes with it, I think that's when we are going to be able to allow ourselves to show up in that jigsaw puzzle.
Yeah, I think so, yes. And I think when we accept our circumstances and situations that we find ourselves in, and we accept those, then there is a lot of peace. Otherwise, you're struggling, you're resisting, and you're stressed. So I think that calmness and peace within our body and mind comes through accepting of circumstances and situation and ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So let me ask you, Azmina, if someone's having difficulty with self-acceptance, can you tell me like a 2 or 3 step process that you use to help you get back into a place of self-acceptance?
Yeah, I think very much going along with the lines of what you're talking about, because you started your sessions with awareness. And I think in fact, in book, I've got the process. So awareness is the first point, really. You're aware that you're not accepting something, you're not feeling good about something or somebody or a situation or yourself. So once you're aware, then to acknowledge, especially when it's something to do with feelings. Because I had this habit of, if I felt something, I tried to get away from it. Try and either get busy or think about other things. But now what I do is I just acknowledge to myself, yeah, I am feeling this feeling, or, this is where I am right now, and it's okay. And then the acceptance of it, right now, this is exactly how it is, and it is what it is. We say the acceptance of what is. So accepting what is. And then to create the new intention. Okay, so now I'm accepting, I'm relaxed. What do I want now? Do I want to accept myself as this or that? Do I want to accept this situation? Whatever the new intention is, we make that intention. And then, as I said earlier, our next moment would be of moving forward rather than staying where we are in that resistance.
Right.
So I feel that that's the kind of process of when we accept ourselves. And also I've got a list here of, in my book about what are the benefits when we accept ourselves.
Okay.
So can I just say those?
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about that. I think that, I think it's important for us to, before we go to the benefits, I just want to recap your process. Now, what I heard was awareness was the first one. So becoming aware of whatever it is that you're resisting. Second, acknowledging.
Yes.
And I like that word, acknowledging, because acknowledging doesn't mean agreeing with, it doesn't mean condoning. It's simply saying, this is what's happening. That's all. And then I think I heard you say, when it comes to the feelings, give yourself permission to feel them.
Yes. Yes.
Because that's important. That if you don't give yourself permission to feel those feelings, then what happens is you end up stuffing them.
Yes.
And when you stuff them, you kind of push them into the nooks and crannies. They get stuck in those tissues in your body, and they end up over time becoming toxic and potentially causing things like sickness and maybe even some major diseases like cancer. So give yourself permission to feel them. And then I think your fourth step was give yourself permission to move forward. Move forward.
Create a new of what, what is the new, so how would you like it to be? Or, what is the next move from there?
Great. Yeah.
And to move out of that resistance into, whatever it is. If it's a traffic jam again, then it's
sure.
Okay, I'll meditate or, listen to music or, what is an opportunity in wherever we are. Sometimes, if it's somebody who, say, for example, isn't talking to you, for example, right? And a lot of us feel hurt by somebody not talking to us. But if we just acknowledge that that's where it is at, and it's fine, they're not talking to us, and my intention is to accept that person exactly as they are, then that's fine. Mm-hmm. It just relieves that stress and anxiety and non-forgiveness. I think forgiveness comes through there too.
Well, yes, and forgiveness is a whole separate topic that we're going to get to later on. But before we move on, I want to go back to the benefits. Mm-hmm. There are some very, very significant benefits of just simple acceptance, which is the opposite of resistance. Don't forget. So why don't you tell us some of the benefits?
Okay. So first of all, obviously the body relaxes, so we are not in stress, and we all know stress causes a lot of disease in our body. I think also when we are calm and we have accepted things in our life, we are much more likely to be able to listen to our inner voice, our intuition, or the soul, the God within us, whatever people believe in. I think we will feel much more in flow with life. Because when we resist, we are not flowing with life. Life throws things at us which are outside of our control. And if we can ride over them, we are in flow with life. We'll have a lot less fear and judgment about other people, which also we've covered. I think there's a lot more confidence in our own self because we've accepted, okay, I'm good at these things, I'm not good at things, it's fine. I think that gives us that inner confidence to be able to speak up about ourselves and other people. I think we also have a lot more energy because when we are in resistance, that takes up a lot of energy. It reduces our energy, we can't be motivated after when we are drained with this non-acceptance and resistance going on in our brain. So I think we have a lot more energy, a lot more motivation in life. And we live in the present moment a lot more.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we're either living in the past or the future.
Mm-hmm.
So I think these are, according to me, the benefits that we have when we learn to accept our situations and ourselves.
Yeah. Well, I think that one of the biggest benefits that you mentioned is the reduction in stress, which means that you have, because you're more relaxed, you're able to flow more easily. All of these things clearly tie together. And then there's another aspect to this too, and that is you have the increase of DHEA, which is that the youth hormone that helps you to be more youthful, more alive, more relaxed in life. There's a lot of scientific evidence to support all of these things that we're saying here. We're not just making this up. So yes. I highly recommend that people become engaged in a regular practice of acceptance. Again, remember, it doesn't mean that you agree with it. It doesn't mean you condone it. It doesn't mean that you're going along with it necessarily. It just means you're saying, okay, this is what is. It's like acknowledging, as Azmina said earlier. acknowledging this is what is. And now you can decide how you want to process it going forward. Well, Azmina, I just want to say it's been an honor. I mean, we've really been going here. It's been a great topic. It's been a great conversation. I'm so glad that you were able to get on and join and participate today. Do you have any final words that you'd like to share before we close?
Well, just to let people know that learn this tool of just self-acceptance and accepting your situation, because really life is much more peaceful, much more relaxed. You can be in flow with life and achieve a lot more that way.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I want to just say thank you all for joining us today and for participating in today's program. Remember, you can watch recordings of this and all other previous shows on my website at lifemasterytv.com. That's life-mastery-tv.com. And please remember the Life Mastery mantra. Gratefully forgive yourself for the incomplete being you believe you have been. Gratefully accept yourself for all of who you are right now. And gratefully welcome yourself for the evolved being that you are becoming. Love, light, and blessings to you on your journey. And I'll see you on the next episode of Life Mastery TV.